not the funnest news. Over the weekend, Nintendo announced that they were increasing prices for the Switch 1 and its various accessories here in the US. And obviously, the pricing has been a little all over the place in other territories as well. A little while back, they raised prices on a bunch of stuff in Canada, and right now we're getting it here in the US. As always, I hesitate to comment too much on a situation like this because I'm really not incredibly up to date or just uh, smart, well informed overall on these kinds of. It's really a much bigger kind of economic thing going on right now. So like I am most certainly not an expert, but I will do my best to just kind of talk about it and give my take on it or whatever. But yeah, right now there are no changes happening to the price of Switch 2. At least not the system itself. I mean, that could be because they may. I still wonder if they did raise the price of the system kind of at the last minute, if they were originally going to have it be 400, but then they did 450 because they kind of saw some of this stuff coming. I don't know. And also, like, they could just increase it later. It could just be that they're not increasing it right now. But they are increasing the prices of some Switch 2 accessories, which, yeah, is of course a bummer because we already saw an upward adjustment of the prices of some Switch 2 accessories before launch. But we are getting more here, and fortunately, we're not getting price increases for games or NSO at this time. But yeah, the biggest changes are to the price of the Switch 1 systems themselves. I will now read these changes. The Nintendo Switch OLED model was $350. It is now $400. The regular Nintendo Switch was $300. It is now $340. The Switch Lite was $200. It is now $230. And then a pair of Joy-Con controllers was $80. It's now $90. Pro controller was $70. It's now $80. NES controllers pack was $60, it is now $70. Super NES controller was $30, it is now $35. N64 controller was $30, it's now $35. Sega Genesis controller was $50, it's now $55. And then a Joy-Con charging stand was $30, and it is now $35. So that's all the stuff that's raising in price right now for Switch 1 and Switch 1 accessories. Now for Switch 2 prices. The Pro controller was $85, now it is $90. I missed my chance to save that $5. They never have them when I go to the store. Joy-Con 2 controllers, a set of them was $95. Now it's $100. Golly. Switch 2 GameCube controller was $65, now it is $70. Joy-Con 2 straps were $14, now they're $15. And a dock set was $120, it is now $125. And then we have a few other price increases for other things. Legacy Amiibo were $16, now they are $20. Two-pack Amiibos were $30, now they are $35 or $40. And then Alarmo. Our dear Alarmo was $100. Nice clean hundo, and now it is $110. So good. That is everything for now. Obviously, this is happening in response to various tariffs, which are being imposed upon a whole lot of countries. Really, just kind of thrown around willy-nilly, really. And so this is dramatically increasing the price of exporting goods to the US and selling them here. And so this is cutting into company profits. And so, naturally, this is a response to that. They're increasing the prices so that their profits don't go down too much. And of course, it is disappointing to see for various reasons. It's a real bummer that most really big companies aren't willing to eat much, if any, cost. When the cost of business goes up, they do tend to want to pass that on to the consumer. So it's one of those things where, on the one hand, I can understand that you're a big company, you've got all these shareholders, and nobody up at the top likes the idea of just all of a sudden you wake up the next day and suddenly you're just making less money on everything. You know, that may scare the investors. If you don't raise the prices, then maybe they'll pull out. Maybe you'll lose more money in the long run. But then, of course, that does speak to a much broader and bigger and more terrible conversation about capitalism and all that stuff, and how, like, is it so bad though that you're raking in billions and billions and billions of dollars? You can't, like, cut us a break a little bit because everything is getting harder for us. So, like, yeah, like, of course it's sort of understandable because they're such a big company, and at that size, just about every company is going to act the same way. That's kind of just how this whole nasty machine works. But then on the other hand, I don't like that that's how it works, and you would wish that a company could do something a little bit differently. I don't know. And it's also just disturbing to see these prices being increased like at all. This is kind of a new thing. You know, before... generally speaking, you know, inflation would, like, gradually rise over time, and so prices would increase a little bit more slowly, you know, like new products would release, and then maybe those products would have to be sold at higher prices, or like it would go generation to generation. Okay, well, now this is the generation where games are going from $50 to $60. You know, console prices are going up. It would kind of adjust as the economy changed. But, you know, now the powers that be are acting so erratically and making decisions that are so dramatically short-sighted and damaging, to put it a little bit lightly, that the rest of the world is struggling to keep up and struggling to even figure out what to do. And yeah, it's being passed on to us. So yes, like, the very idea of a product going up in price instead of down, especially in, like, the tech industry, the game industry, like, what happens to console prices? They go down over time. You know, the components become cheaper to manufacture, and, like, the system itself just becomes old news, especially when it gets replaced by a newer system. So it goes down. It becomes a budget thing. The games, they've been out for so long, they've already sold as much as they're going to sell, so why don't we lower the price? So yeah, it's disturbing. It's a very new thing for us, and it, of course, does reflect a very disturbing climate that we now find ourselves in. And then if you want to look at it a little bit more superficially in, like, the realm of things that don't actually matter, but let's do that. That's fun. Let's have a little fun and look at things. And the part that doesn't matter at all is, oh golly, it sure would be fun if the Switch became the #1 top-selling game console of all time. And now the Switch 2 has come out. It's basically replaced the original Switch. So the idea, even since the beginning, like, it's always just been like, okay, well, like, the new system comes out, so the old system becomes the budget console. Look at the 3DS. You know, you got, like, the 2DS, like, just like the absolute most basic one. That thing was, like, dirt cheap, you know, like, it got so cheap, and that makes sense. Again, it's old tech. It should get cheaper over time, and then you get, like, stragglers. You get people who want to buy multiple for their kids. Like, it's how it's always been. The old thing is gonna be less expensive, and there's a natural order to it. And so now we're at this point where, like, the Switch is so close to becoming the #1 highest selling video game console of all time. It's just a hair away from overtaking the DS. I have no doubt that it will. It's about to. It's about to become the #1 best selling Nintendo console of all time. But it's still got at least, like, 5 million to go before it hits that nebulous 160 plus PS2 number, which no doubt if the Switch does reach it, it's going to become 165. But whatever. The Switch, despite the Switch 2 releasing, managed to sell, like, about 1 million units in the last quarter. So, like, considering how much it's slowed down and now it's been replaced, like, it's going to be a little bit hard to catch up, to close that last little gap there. Needs a good 7 or 8 before we can be, like, more or less sure that it's beaten the PS2. So now, like, right now you're increasing the prices. This thing that's supposed to be the budget console Now the prices are going up, I mean, like $400 for an OLED. That's only $50 less than a Switch 2, so this is definitely not going to help, especially considering a Switch 2 can play Switch 1 games. It's almost like Nintendo is like, hey, don't buy these anymore. Please don't. You know what I mean? And then, of course, that does beg the question, why is only the Switch going up and not the Switch 2, especially if now you have this weird pricing where the Switch OLED is only $50 less than a Switch 2. That's strange. It's such an old system. Why wouldn't this apply to the Switch 2 as well? And obviously I really don't know. I can only guess. I have to imagine that, one, again, they may have already kind of adjusted the price up before. It could be they really were going to charge $400 and then they went $450 at the last second. But really, I'm sure that they are aware that there has been quite a backlash to a lot of this stuff, these higher prices. And it could just be that they recognize the situation is a little bit delicate right now. And if they raise the prices on Switch 2, that's going to make things that much worse. So it could just be, and it could be that now they are going to take quite a hit on Switch 2 because Switch 2 is going to be selling a lot more. And I know there's this idea that there are so many Switch 2s already here in the US waiting to sell. I don't know how many Nintendo could possibly have stockpiled before they run out and they need to ship more here and then they're paying because of the tariffs. I'm really not sure. But it is at least possible that now they are, making less money on Switch 2 stuff. It could be that they're raising prices on the original Switch just because that's less important. And you know what I mean? It would not go down as poorly as if they raised the price on Switch 2. So it could be that this was their effort to kind of make up the difference and make back a little bit of extra money a bit. You know what I mean? Just to kind of ease it a bit. And this is where I really don't know. I don't have all the details about the specific tariffs, and it's all very, very complicated, and it has to do with components moving around, but then also the finished system moving around, and it's a whole thing. I don't know if this is them. I don't know. Maybe they're overshooting. Maybe this is them charging too much more for these things, and it's completely unreasonable. Or it could be that they are still losing a little bit of money, but this is as much as they feel that they can get away with, or this is just what they think they can get away with right now, and then prices will change later. And then again, all of this is happening so willy-nilly, just so kind of at the whims of certain parties without much thought whatsoever about how it's going to affect things in the long run and how much it's going to damage this economy and us, the people who live here. Honestly, I think Nintendo doesn't know what to do. There is no one right answer. This is a mess. It is an absolute mess. And so yeah, just to say again, I get it. I get that it's a weird situation for them, but then also, yes, why you couldn't have just taken the hit? You couldn't have taken a bigger hit, especially because we've been waiting for the Switch 1 to go down in price at some point. And late last generation, there was even this idea that prices were increasing. Other companies were increasing their prices. Xbox has increased their prices multiple times across their various services and things. Nintendo was kind of well, hey, us not increasing the price in the face of all of this inflation and the constantly weakening yen, not increasing the price is kind of dropping the price. Kind of, and I can kind of see that, but then it would have been nice if here, at the start of the Switch 2 generation, right when the time would have been right to lower that price of the original Switch a little bit more, just to really sell it as the budget console. It would have been nice if they could have done that again. If they could have just been okay, well, we're not going to increase it. So again, that is kind of sort of like a price drop. But no, they raised them by quite a lot. So yeah, I mean, the idea of such an old system, the regular old base model Switch, not upgraded in any way. I mean, I guess it's the one with the better battery life because it has the more efficient chip or whatever. But yeah, the idea of paying $40 more now than it was even worth 8 years ago. It's a tough pill to swallow, and it's a mess. the whole The whole thing is a pretty awful mess, isn't it? But yeah, we don't know how all this is going to shake out. We don't know what's going to happen in the end. We don't know if the Switch 2 is going to have to go up in price. We just don't know. These things are changing so rapidly that maybe they'll just be completely different a few months from now. We really don't know. But what I do know, this I am certain of. I've never been more sure of anything in my entire life than what I'm about to say right now, and it's that every single person listening to this is so lovely. You are all so lovely. You are so wonderful. I wish you all of the best things. I thank you so much for watching this video, watching any of my videos. You make me feel so wonderful.